Imagine this. It's your first time on a new stream, and after arrival, you realize that you have a mix of private and public property. And on top of this, there is very little signage, and you are unsure where you can and can't fish. Now imagine arriving out that same stream, but this time with a detailed mapping app that includes public access points, land ownership details, stream flows, and even local fly shop locations. Today, you're going to find out how to get all this in your pocket as we explore trout routes. This is the Wet Fly Swing Podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. Hey, I'm Dave, host of the Wet Fly Swing Podcast. I've been fly fishing since I was a little kid. I grew up around a little fly shop and have created one of the largest fly fishing podcasts in this country. I've also interviewed more of the greatest fly anglers and businesses than just about anyone out there. Erik Johnsen, Community Marketing Master at Trout Routes, is here to help us understand the most popular features of trout routes. We're going to find out how to use the river miles calculator and how it all works and how this will actually save you a lot of time. And we're going to get more detailed information on how the fly shop component works and what the Rare Waters app is all about. And we're also going to find out where trout routes will be doubling down in the future as we head forward. Plus, did I forget to tell you, Trout Routes has been acquired by OnX. So you're going to hear that full story as well today. Over 50,000 trout streams. So let's start exploring. Here we go. Erik Johnsen from troutroutes.com. How you doing, Erik?
I'm doing great, Dave. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for making time today to put this together. We're going to do a little update on Trout Routes, the greatest fly fishing app out there. And really, you guys have a lot going. It's not just fly fishing, but we're going to talk about everything you have going with the app and the future of Trout Routes, all these amazing acquisitions. OnX is in there. We've got, just a lot going on. It's pretty cool because I'm going to get the update. Everybody's going to hear about what's going on with Trout Routes. But before we get into all that, let's bring it back to fly fishing. What's your first memory of fly fishing? And then we'll talk about how you came into Trout Routes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from the upper Midwest, and I've got some family in the Driftless region. And when I first connected with my wife and had a chance to explore some of that part of the upper Midwest, I quickly realized the value of all of those amazing trout streams that are up in that area. And I knew that if I was going to spend any time up in that part of the country, that I was going to have to get on a fly rod and try to figure all that out. And so I kind of learned the hard way on my own later in life to cast a fly and tried to understand, entomology and access laws and all that sort of fun stuff. But we really got into it on my own, maybe about 15 years ago. And one of my big motivators at the time was my wife's dad, my father-in-law, used to fly fish a ton out west. And I figured this would be the perfect way for me to try and connect with them. And lo and behold, it took a number of years before I was successful, not only in catching fish, but also in getting him to join me on the water. But I eventually did get him out with me, and it was a real joy to see him light up and catch a couple of little brookies on a spring-fed creek right down the street from his farmstead. And see kind of the excitement come back to life. He hadn't been fly fishing for a number of years, and I was really excited to bring him back to that. So that's sort of my fly fishing history, the quick version. And the Driftless region is a real special place to me, and it's one of the places that I really enjoy coming back to.
Amazing, yeah. And we're heading to the Driftless. I'll be there in late September, so I'm real excited. I've never been there. Yeah, so it's going to be fun. How is that late September period for heading to that part of the Driftless?
That can be some of my favorite fishing, really. That's when you get really into some of that late season hopper fishing. The terrestrials are out in full force. You kind of get some of those cooler evenings, so the water stays at a nice temperature. And, I think it's kind of post-peak season. So the Driftless is getting a little bit busier these days. It's, there's tons of water to explore out here. And I think people are really excited about the opportunities that presents. But if you're out here in sort of that later September part of the year, things do slow down a little bit and you have things a little bit more to yourself. So it's a fantastic time to be out in this neck of the woods for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, we're excited. We're going to be doing a road trip out. It's going to be awesome with the family from Oregon all the way out to the Wisconsin.
Oh, so nice. Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, so be good. Okay. So that's a little update on you. So how did the trout routes, let's hear about that. So you've got this amazing app.
Yeah. So I actually don't come from the fly fishing industry. Earlier in my career, I was actually working in craft beer in the Twin Cities and spent quite a bit of time in that space, which was a lot of fun. And was looking to make a career move a couple of years ago. And I happened to be out on the water with a buddy of mine. And we were, fly fishing for smallies and on the upper Mississippi and just talking fishing and talking, fly industry and that sort of thing. And he says, you know what, I actually have a position that just opened up, and I think you would be great for it. And kind of on a whim, I applied and met Zach Pope, the founder of Trout Routes, and had a fantastic conversation. We all hit it off really well. And I joined the team, and that was part of the first round of employees that Zach brought on to Trout Routes to help him support the app and the project. And it's been a pretty wild and exciting ride ever since.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, so and we had Zach on the podcast in episode 565, and we kind of had an intro and things like that. And yeah, and Trout Routes has just been, it seems like it's been booming. You hear about all the new features and new acquisitions and, kind of mergers, all this stuff. So what's it felt like for you for the last, since you've been in there? Has it kind of been like this wild ride of...
Yeah, it's been really exciting. It's certainly been that true startup culture where everyone wears lots of hats. We play multiple roles and things move very quickly. But it's been very exciting because I think the product that Zach built before he brought the original team together was a really exciting opportunity, not just for us as employees, but for anglers across the country. And to be part of the growth that we've managed to accomplish over the last couple of years has been really, really astounding. The app really focused originally on the upper Midwest. And so it's been great to be part of the expansion as we bring Trout Routes and all the data for trout angling across the country. But then also to be part of this new, really amazing chapter with OnX. And I know we'll get into that a little bit, where we're continuing to grow and we're continuing to expand and really, really hone in on being the best mapping product for fly anglers and trout specifically.
Right on. And one of those places I think we might have talked a while back was Alaska. We're actually heading up to Alaska next summer, and we're going to be, we'll have Trout Routes along with us because it's going to be an awesome journey. But have you guys expanded to Alaska yet, or is that still on the list?
It's still on the list. There's an awful lot of water to be explored up in Alaska, and I think there's a lot of seasonal water up there, and so we're taking a very cautious approach at how we are going to tackle the state of Alaska. But keep your eyes peeled. There, we'll see what we can come up with in the next year or so. But I think just with the amount of water there is to explore up there, we want to make sure that we keep things as accurate as possible, as well as being meaningful for our users. So it's something that we've all been excited about for a while. We'll keep our fingers crossed and see what we can do for you.
Yeah, that's right. All right, good. And I mean, just the size of Alaska, I always compare. It's hard to think of how big it is, but I mean, it's got to be like half the size of the lower 48 or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely massive, and so we've got a few things on the list ahead of that, but I think it'll be coming at some point for sure.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, I think everybody knows Trout Routes, what you are, this mapping, obviously maps. You've got these great maps, topo maps, all this stuff. You've got the access points. You've got landowner information. I mean, just those three things are huge. And we're going to talk about some features and stuff, but let's go right into the OnX because that's another app, another product I've been using for years. It's awesome. Talk about that. How did that come to be, and how is that? Maybe give us an update of what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in March, we officially became part of the OnX family. OnX acquired Trout Routes, and that came about over the course of several months and honestly, even a couple of years of networking and relationship building. But, when you speak to anglers and you ask them what products they're using to help them map out their trout fishing experiences, a lot of folks are using OnX. It's no surprise that, we hear that quite a bit. OnX has been in the mapping space for a very long time, and we have looked up to them from the very beginning. They've been sort of the pinnacle of what we're hoping to get to in terms of product development, and it's been really cool now that we are finally under their guidance and leadership. What that means for Trout Routes, though, is that we are actually going to remain an independent product and continue to be focused very heavily on trout fishing applications. As far as M&As are concerned, I have not been a part of many, so this is all brand new to me and for us as a team. But what's been very exciting for us is that, OnX very easily could have acquired our data and, asked us to step aside and let them take over, but in fact have allowed the entire team to join them and I think because of the reputation and the brand that we've built behind trout routes and how well respected we are in the industry and all the relationships we have with folks, that OnX was very interested and keen on having us maintain our hands on the product and our hands on the brand to help us continue to grow at the pace we're growing at. So it's really exciting for us because we not only get to remain independent and work together as our team, but we have now the resources at our disposal from OnX, not only their knowledge and their experience, but their development teams and marketing support and things like that. So for trout routes as a product, what that means is that we are going to be getting better faster, and we're incorporating more information. We're streamlining the user experience. You're going to see a lot of exciting updates here in the near future as we continue to grow and as well as take that amazing direction from the folks at OnX.
That's really cool. And so what is, with the using trout routes, maybe talk about that, some of the features that people really love, users of trout routes. What do you think are the key features that, you can kind of highlight now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you've spoken about trout routes a little bit, so I'll try and touch on some of the things that are maybe a little bit more specific or have some more unique applications. But, trout routes, of course, specializes in mapping trout streams across the country. So obviously having stream classifications for all the trout water across the lower 40 is incredibly valuable, especially as a jumping off point. If you're new to trout fishing, if you're new to fly angling, this can be a really helpful way for you to understand where some of the easier access points might be, where some of the healthier trout populations are going to be living, where there's great habitat. And so we've classified that water and color-coded it so you can get a really easy idea of what's available and what's out there. But then, of course, we've also mapped, those access points to direct you right to those places where you can legally and properly access that trout water, as well as color-coded public and private land. So at a glance, it's really easy for you to find fishing opportunities and know exactly where you stand to be sure that you're on public access. One of the features that I've been using quite a bit lately, however, is something a little bit more specific. Trout Routes has developed a river miles calculator tool, which is really valuable in a number of different aspects. It's something that you can open up in the app, and all you do is tap on 2 points on any trout stream, and you can easily and immediately see the distance between those 2 points. So if you're mapping out a float, or if you want to know the distance between boat launches or access points, you're only a couple of taps away from finding out exactly the distance between those two. So you can get an idea of not only the length of the float, or if you're walking and wading, how far you might expect to walk that particular fishing session. But it's incredibly helpful, and you can tap on any point on the map. It doesn't have to be an icon. It can be anywhere. So it can be from your location to the next access point. It can be from the edge of a public and private land boundary to a bridge. Lots of really useful opportunities for you to get a sense of that water before you have a chance to get out there. So that would be another one that I would encourage folks to check out. It's a little bit more specific and perhaps maybe a little bit more advanced, but I think it's very easy to use. And certainly an underutilized feature that I think could be very helpful for folks as they're planning out their fishing excursions.
Yeah, that is a good one. So the calculator, and that's awesome. So you don't have to, and does it measure stream miles, or does it measure straight as the crow flies?
Yeah, excellent question. It actually will measure the stream miles. And so the software is designed such that wherever you tap, it'll show you along the curve of the stream exactly what that distance is. Rather than just getting a more general average as the crow flies. So it's super useful.
Gotcha. What is when you have a new user that comes in, what is the biggest challenge to, let's say they purchase Trout Routes and they have it, to get them to use it? Because I know that's a part of any tool, right? Making sure they use it. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest struggle to getting people to use it? Because I'd imagine once they're using it and they see all the features, then they're, it just becomes part of their thing. But is there a challenge to get people, on board? And how do you guys verify that?
Yeah, for sure. We do a lot of user testing and a lot of user research. Actually, it's been really great to have some of those resources at our disposal via OnX. They have been doing user testing and studies for years. And so they are very good at obtaining that kind of data. So we certainly do a bunch of, user surveys and things like that to get a sense from people what those challenging sticking points are, as well as the things that they're really enjoying. I would say, one of the first challenges is trying to decide what information you are looking for. And this is maybe less of a software or user experience or interface challenge as it is in general, what are the things that are going to help you when you're looking at a map of trout streams? And so we try to make that as easy as possible by outlining all of the icons and explaining what the filter settings or the layer settings are, so you can very easily see what the data is and what it means. But I would say that's probably a big sticking point. And when it comes to any mapping software, one of the challenges is finding the right way to incorporate all this data into a product that is easy to read, is easy to filter and sort depending on what applications you're looking for. And so I think, with any mapping software, that's certainly a challenge. It's finding the correct way and an easy way to disseminate all that information and then present it to your user and your audience in a way that makes it meaningful. One of the other, I think, ways we help do that is by changing or by allowing the user to adjust their map mode. So if you're looking for regulations, you can go in and turn on your regulations layer, and that'll really highlight and focus on the fishing regulations for the area that you're looking at. If you are interested in more of the public access, or perhaps you're curious about fishing easements, switch yourself over to the access layer, and now you can really see the access being highlighted. So we do the best we can to help sort and filter all that information for everybody. I suppose from the outset, it can be a little bit intimidating if you aren't used to mapping software, or if you're a newer angler, just because there are so many things to learn in terms of casting or fly selection or what line to use. And, certainly mapping can be very intimidating as well. So we do the best we can to help with that application. I think we've done a pretty amazing job if you really drill down into how much data there is in trout routes, there's an awful lot of information at your disposal to be able to sift through.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's the thing. I mean, part of it is, the maps. And part of it, when you're using trout routes, now you can download the maps for offline, but if you're just in areas with cell coverage, do the maps automatically populate no matter where you are?
Absolutely. Yep. Everything's available if you're connected. If you know you're going to be outside of cell coverage, however, you certainly can download those sections, and whatever you have loaded onto the map is what you'll capture. So you'll have all of that information at hand, even if you might be outside of cell coverage. And what's great there too is your GPS signal is still visible. So you can use trout routes to help you navigate, even if you are outside of cell range, provided you've got that area of the map downloaded ahead of time. Yeah, which is another incredible feature. And I think that would be maybe another feature to touch on, is just the ability to download those maps so you've got them available in hand. I think having that resource in your pocket is a great way to not only instill confidence, but help you be as prepared as possible when you're heading out, especially if you're heading out somewhere new.
Yeah. And on that, is it better to download those maps on your phone or to do it on your desktop version? And then talk about that a little bit, how that works.
Yeah, you can download them right onto your phone. It's a fairly straightforward process, and a couple of different ways you can do that. You can tap the create button in the menu, and then the offline map button will allow you to pan around on the map. It'll show you a little rectangle, a highlighted rectangle section, and you can pan inside that rectangle and zoom in or zoom out depending on what exactly you're looking for. Or if you tapped on any stream in trout routes, there's a button that allows you to single tap to download the entire section. So if you knew you were going to be exploring a whole section of water, or you wanted a little bit more of that map, that's a really easy way to do that as well. But what's great is, you can actually capture quite a bit of information offline. You certainly aren't able to download the entire country. That's way too much data for your phone to handle. But it's all part of your own user-generated content that you can manage. So if you no longer need an offline map, you can take that off your list, and that'll open up some extra space. Quite frankly, it's a rather incredible amount of data that you could hold at one time. And I don't know if I've ever encountered anybody that's maxed that out before, but it's all part of your, internal content. And along with that, you can, download those maps, but you can also create your own markers or upload notes or photos or things like that. Some folks like to use that as like their own personal fishing log. Other people like to use those markers as a way to really help plan out their fishing trips. So they'll mark spots where they're going to stop for lunch, or they're going to mark spots where they might have done some other research and they know that this section could be really good for fishing or for holding fish. So I'm going to drop a pin here to make sure I stop at that spot when I'm out on the water. However, all that information that you're plugging in is private to your profile. So it's part of your own personal fishing log, and it's not something that other users can see or that we are using to curate maps or anything like that. So you can rest assured that your honey hole, your sweet spot is going to be safe in your hands, as it were.
That's a big thing people are worried about, right, that don't know. They think that all these, if they mark their point, then you guys are going to be able to see it and use it and share it, right?
Exactly. Yep. We aren't looking at any of that information. It's not available to any other user. It's not anything that we're relying on. We are very keen on the fragility of these resources that we're helping folks explore, and it's very important to us to make sure that we're protecting them as best we can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And how is OnX different, just the mapping itself? Because OnX has the maps. I know they have a thing, it's like by state. I think you pick a state or something, or you pay for the whole thing and you get the whole country. Does OnX download, do you get the whole state, or do you have to download each area you want, just like trout routes?
Yeah, it's the same process where you would have the same, depending on if you are subscribing to a state or to the whole country, you have access to the data. And then depending on what you're interested in capturing for offline, you follow a very similar process where you can open up the offline maps tool, select an area, and then download. And so whatever you have loaded there will also show up on your phone.
Okay. And cell phone, do you guys have any ideas how much of the country doesn't have cell phone coverage?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, although I do know that as a general rule of thumb, some of the best fishing opportunities are going to be as far from cell coverage as you could get. So,
yeah.
And I know plenty of your listeners are looking for those really secluded, hard to reach opportunities. So having those maps offline is incredibly valuable. Absolutely.
Yeah. Would it be hard to just download any state? I mean, would that take a while?
Yeah, it would. I think the last we looked at it, you are allowed to keep roughly the size of, say, the state of New Jersey. So I suppose you could download all of New Jersey if you wanted to. But that amount of area is what you have access to as far as offline maps are concerned. But like I said, I have yet to encounter anybody that's maxed out their offline maps use, and because you don't necessarily need all of the data when you're in the backcountry, you really just need the area that you're exploring. And so it's very easy to incorporate and capture anything that you would be needing for a particular fishing trip without running out of space.
Okay. And what would be, and I think of this as like a magic moment sort of thing, when somebody purchases your app and they're expecting mapping software, but they get some other thing that they didn't realize was there. Is there a magic thing in there that people really, you know what I mean? Like something that they get that they're not thinking about that they actually get?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the features that I think is sometimes overlooked is how we incorporate every USGS stream gauge into trout routes. And so you might jump into the app because you're trying to find an access point, or you want to see, I know this bridge crosses a stream here, but where else do I have some other public access? And you open up the app and lo and behold, there's a stream gauge icon right in the middle of it. So you can see in real time what those river conditions are. I think that's a really, really powerful tool. And especially if you've done any trout fishing at all, I think most folks are pretty aware that stream levels, flows, and heights and things like that can really affect how well the fishing might be. So being aware of what those flows are is certainly a critical component. But I think it's also something that can help you get a sense of some trout water before you've even been there in person. You don't necessarily need to be on the water to get an idea of what those conditions might be like ahead of time. So I would say that certainly is a feature that, can not only be a great benefit, but can also be a bit of a surprise when folks are coming in there for another application. And I think too, if you poked around on that feature itself, I know that the USGS website can be a little challenging to navigate. In some cases, you have to remember what the name of the gauge is. It's not exactly as intuitive, knowing where gauges are relative to each other. And so another way that we incorporate that data is by showing you a list. If you tap on a stream in trout routes, you can see a list of the nearest gauges. And if there are a number of gauges on that particular stream or river, we'll show you based on the distance where they are, and you can compare those flows really, really easily. So I would say, and this was a relatively recent update that we made, but the way that we formulate all that information in the stream card when you tap on a stream has been very, very powerful. Not only are we showing you where those gauges are, but we're pulling in information about regulations, about access laws, and even fly shops. I mean, that's another one I think that I would say it stands out is we've done the legwork to map out all those fly shops across the country. And so as you're exploring ahead of time at home, or if you are even out in the wild and you happen to have some coverage, you can see where those shops are. And maybe you're on the water and you run out of tippet, or you realize that you left your dry fly box at home and you're in a pinch. Well, we can show you where the nearest fly shops are and direct you right to those folks that are going to be the experts on that stretch of water. So another really helpful feature, again, designed to bring all of this information together in a single seamless product that allows you to interact with it, engage with it, and get connected directly with the most up-to-date information, as well as the folks that are going to be the experts on the ground.
Yeah, I think that's another magic moment. The fly shops, like nobody, you wouldn't think about that. What, as you guys look out, do you, there must be other features, other things you're thinking about. How do you, like the fly shops, like maybe talk about that a little bit. How did you choose? Has that been from the beginning? Have you been thinking about that, or did that come up from feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a critical element from the beginning, and has been, and still really to this day, is a very manual process where we're going through and just doing some old-fashioned internet searches, trying to find where those shops are. But we recognized early on how important those shops are, not only in terms of helping anglers get connected with what flies might be working or what gear I should be thinking about, but also because those are community meeting places. Those are places where conservation groups will get together and organize stream cleanups, or have seminars on angling education, or fly tying seminars and things like that. So that was always a very important part of trout routes for us, for all those reasons, because we can only be in so many places at once. And so we want to make sure that we are connecting our users with other outlets of information. So that's always been on the radar. And I'm very happy to say that we've got as many of those shops in there as we do. And I'm also excited to welcome those shops into our endorsed network. So we've partnered with a handful of shops across the country that we know are providing exceptional information. They've got really knowledgeable and helpful staff and are great resources. And so we help highlight those shops as well by giving them a little Trout Routes badge on their shop icon to really highlight even more so who we think are doing great work, not only in their community by providing those, community and conservation and restoration events, but as well as just being great sources of information for that area.
If somebody was listening now and they had some fly shops, could they give you guys a heads up and say, hey, here's a shop you guys are missing, and could you add those?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can shoot us a note at support@troutroutes.com. That's a great way to get in touch with us. But you're certainly also welcome to track me down, because I'm the person that helps manage that program. We can get my contact details in the show notes, I'm sure, at the end of this conversation. Okay,
great. And I love that we went into the fly shops, because I think we all know fly shops are awesome. It's such a huge thing for people, whether you're new or been fishing forever. Do you have any idea how many shops are around the country? I always think of this 5,000 number, but do you guys have any idea total numbers of shops?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit less. It kind of depends on whether or not you are going to incorporate some of those bigger box retailers that have to carry some fly tackle, or if you're just looking at...
What if you just did the low, just your fly shop without just the strictly
Sure,
fly?
yeah. I think that's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to check. I'm sure it's fluctuating all the time, and I know my GIS developer is going to hear this and he's going to go, no, it's actually this number.
Either way, 2,000 to 5,000, yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's certainly a lot, and I know that those folks, they rely on our support and angler support across the country, so they are kind of one of those remaining. I think one of the things that makes fly angling really great is that it has this incredible community of people. And I think fly shops are still one of those few places where you can go, where you can just connect with other anglers, you can learn something, you can pick up some gear that's going to be exactly what you need for like that afternoon. I mean, I think we're all kind of tuned to instant gratification and, quick turnaround in terms of products and things like that here and there. And it's nice that fly fishing and fly shops are really holding on to some of that tradition and really trying to be that community meeting point. That's not just about selling and revenue margins and things like that, but it's really about community, and it's about bringing people together, and it's about supporting the sport as much as they can. So, I really like that we continue to lean heavily on those partners and make sure that we provide the visibility that I think they deserve more of.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big part of what you guys have been doing, right? I mean, working on just partnerships and fly shops and just the community. It seems like would you say that's the biggest part of Trout Route's success, is just embracing all that community and the connections?
That's an excellent question. And I think we had kind of a light bulb moment about a year and a half ago where we went to a few of the first national fly fishing expos that we had gone to. And we were pretty unsure of how well we were going to do. We didn't really know what to expect. We were newcomers to the industry, so we were very fresh into making some of those other industry connections. And I would say that the entire team was shocked at not only the reception that we were getting from people, being able to interact with them face to face, but how so many folks in the industry were also interested in finding ways to partner with us and work with us to help support their missions and causes. And we decided early on that we were going to lean into that as heavily as we could. And I feel like it has absolutely paid off, not only in how much our reputation has grown over the last 2.5 years, but how well we've been able to establish ourselves as fixtures of fly fishing and of stream mapping, and that we're all here for the right reasons. Like, as I mentioned earlier, we all recognize the fragility of these resources. So anybody could come in and create some maps and put it on the App Store, but to do it well and to do it long term, you have to make sure that you're thinking about the communities of people that this is going to affect and how you can support them, how you can support conservation and restoration initiatives, how you can educate new anglers to make sure that you're helping new folks who are brand new to the sport understand what an easement is and how you can approach certain water in a certain way. And so for us to be out in person at all these places across the country over the last couple of years, I think has been absolutely vital to our success. And, I think that's certainly key in terms of how we've been sort of folded into the OnX umbrella, where we are maintaining our momentum because we've taken the time to meet with people in person, to connect with anglers, to connect with other folks in the fly fishing industry. And it's certainly paying off. And so I'm really, really happy that we made that decision a couple of years ago to lean into that element.
And what is, on a different track here, you mentioned a little bit on the water use laws. Those are varying, I guess, different in different states. How do you guys navigate that, where you've got some of these areas where you can legally, be in the stream, some places you can't?
Yeah, absolutely. Access is a huge challenge across the country, and it's not just, out west. There are plenty of places across the lower 48 where access laws can change depending on the season, depending on water temperature. All sorts of things can affect that. And so we spent a lot of time tracking down where those regulations are stored and how they're updated. We do the best we can to bring in as much of that data into the app itself. And one of the easiest ways, I think, to start learning some of that info is just by tapping on a stream, and you can hit that access laws tab. And so we pull in that information right there in front of you. And then what's also great is in cases where some of those regulations might have some seasonality that we aren't able to capture necessarily for the entire year, we link you directly to those places where you can find the most up-to-date information. So we do our best to give you the overview and the general regulations. And if you're in a particular area where you can expect things to change, we're going to send you right to that source, which of course is another challenge. I mean, I think depending on what state you're from, some states have better resources than others. And so we've done the legwork to help you get a head start on figuring out where you need to go to find that information as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think not only in terms of seasonality, but I think just in terms of general access, it's great to have a resource that will show you, even state by state, what the general regulations are. Of course, access laws in a state like Colorado are vastly different than a state like Wisconsin. So having just the baseline of what those regulations are is incredibly important, and we've plugged all of that in for you as well.
Yeah. And in Colorado, there's it's all private? In Wisconsin, there's a lot of public access, or is that the difference?
In Colorado, if you're on a body of water, landowners technically own the stream bed, so you are unable to anchor or, walk and wade through those sections. Whereas in Wisconsin, if you can access some water, and in most cases, any bridge crossing is going to count as a public access point. As long as you can keep your feet wet, you're allowed to kind of head up or downstream as much as you'd like. And then, of course, I would say Wisconsin in general just has a ton of additional fishing easements, and we've taken the time to track all of those down as well. So it may be a public section of land, but there might be, a landowner agreement that they've made with the state or local government to allow access. And so we've also highlighted those as well.
Gotcha. This is great. Yeah, and that's a huge, obviously, a huge thing. So we're going to have probably a couple episodes on that. I know we're going to bring Bo Beasley back on to talk about some of that. And there's lots of interesting, and again, I think the key is you guys have your app as a resource, but if you have any questions to dig in deeper, right, and find out, especially as laws can change throughout the year, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we could spend the whole rest of the day talking about public access, I'm sure.
Right.
But yeah, what we try to do, like I said, is capture as much of that data as we can find, which in many cases is just about all that there is out there, and plug it into the app for you. And then, of course, direct you to the agencies that are responsible for managing all that. But it's a tricky subject. And I think depending on where you are in the country, different sorts of things are going to affect that. We're always going to be in support of public land access. It's very important for us. It's important for anglers and recreationists across the country. Outdoors people really rely on that public land and that public access and that sort of thing. So we're hoping to continue to be a great resource for that, for folks to be confident in knowing that they're on a public water and they're accessing it in a proper way.
Yeah, and we had an episode with, well, again, changing the title a little bit here, but Rare Waters is another. I want to hear about that with you guys, that connection. But I guess there's that private property, but that was an episode we did, episode 577, and we definitely got some. I always joke and call it the hate mail, but lots of comments on the fact that I think it's a lot of people not really listening to the podcast probably and hearing what it's about, but basically saying, hey, you're buying up this public land, right, and you're making people pay to play, sort of thing. But I think Rare Waters is actually a really awesome product and idea. Can you talk about that? Was that maybe talk about how you guys are connected with Rare Waters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would certainly direct listeners to head back to that episode if they haven't caught it yet, because they do a really great job of talking about kind of their backstory and some of the goals they're hoping to accomplish. I will say, Rare Waters, being based in Colorado, certainly has a lot of fishable water in their backyard that you can't access because it runs through private land. And so what their goal is to really partner with landowners that are trying to open up some of that water. And it's a benefit for the landowner. It's a benefit for anglers that are looking for some new opportunities. And I think for trout routes, because we are so dedicated to access, for us, that's a win-win. It's another opportunity for anglers to find some other fishing opportunities that may have been locked in private land. And we had a chance to get connected with that crew again via these expos and these in-person events, and really liked what they were doing. And another example of getting to meet some folks behind the scenes that are truly dedicated anglers and conservationists and understand the value and the importance of access and accessibility. And I think what they're doing is truly opening up some new doors and some new opportunities for people, as well as using their platform to advocate for more public access and more conservation. And I know they do a great job working with Colorado Trout Unlimited. They're a significant supporter of those folks. They do a lot of really fun and exciting work to bring folks together in the industry to help highlight, Colorado businesses. And it's like you said, people who don't understand what their goals are, I think, are quick to judge or quick to shout off some negative feedback, which is, not unlike some of our experience. We certainly have plenty of folks that have maybe a misconception of what we're doing and assume that we're sharing the fishing spot with other anglers and don't realize that we're simply curating this data for you to find more access to more public water. And so it's been a really exciting partnership for us because we get to bring in some of those fishing opportunities and they get to share trout routes with their customers as well. Often folks are not just fishing a private stretch for the whole weekend or the whole trip. They want to do a little bit of exploring. And so we're going to help their audience not only navigate to those locations that they're fishing via Rare Waters and their land partners, but also find some additional opportunities along the way. So it really is a win-win for us. And it's been great so far. We just announced this partnership not too long ago, and so I'm really excited to see how else we're going to find ways to work together. I think it's also another example of tech and technology coming into more of the outdoors. And I think there's always going to be some hesitation around technology and fly fishing and what people are worried about in terms of overexposure or even encouraging additional traffic on some of these areas. And I think what we are hoping to do instead is not direct people to the same access point over and over, but show them how much opportunity there is, beyond their usual very popular access points. And, I think this again gets back to wanting to work with folks that are very mindful of the effects of technology on fly fishing in general, and making sure that while we are encouraging more anglers to join the space, I think everyone in fly fishing is hoping to bring more people into the sport.
For sure.
And so how do you do that mindfully, and how do you do that, in an ethical way where you are also encouraging folks to learn about conservation, learn about these habitats and what they really take to maintain their pristine and their sort of magic qualities. And we certainly feel that, our partners at Red Waters, those guys are doing some amazing work, and we're excited to be working with them.
That was awesome. That was the perfect, I got to capture that little segment you just did there, because I think that you said it very well. Let's take it out of here with the our Fly Shop Friday. I love saying Fly Shop Friday because it's kind of rhymes, alliteration, but also there's a lot of great brands. I just saw the Drake, magazine has a Fly Shop Friday. Lamson, we love Lamson. They kind of have that, but it's cool because it's kind of a shout out, right, to your local shop. So we talked fly shops today, and so as we take it out of here, maybe give a shout out to your fly shop. What is the local fly shop closest to where you live now?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Well, we just made a pretty big move out of the Twin Cities.
Oh, that's right.
We're in the heart of the Driftless now. Yep. And so I am in trout country full time, and I am not that far from the Driftless angler. So I'll give those folks a shout out.
They've
been holding things down in the upper Midwest for many, many years. They're a fantastic resource for anglers here in the Driftless, but also, out and beyond. So if you get a chance, look them up. And I know that they've been running some really awesome fishing reports almost daily, so you can get a chance to see what's going on here in the Driftless, even if you're from out of town.
Yeah, and I've been watching those Driftless reports because Jerry and Matt, we're heading out there on our Driftless dry fly school, which we're heading out to, so they're going to be there, and that's a perfect segue into our travel, which I want to ask you too. I know you're busy behind the scenes on trout routes. Do you have any fishing as you look out, kind of those trips that you're looking ahead at hitting around the country, around the state? Do you have any bucket list trips?
Yeah, we are going to be taking trout routes on the road for a little while this summer. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media for more information there.
Oh, cool.
But I think for the most part, I'm going to be sticking to some of those harder to reach driftless streams that are as much off the beaten path as I can find out here in our new neighborhood.
Right. There's a lot, right? And Driftless is just loaded with, hundreds and hundreds of streams just all over the place.
It is absolutely packed with fishing opportunities. And it's a part of the country that I think is sometimes overlooked for its trout fishing, simply because, we might not have trout that get as big as they do out west, but we certainly have some absolutely beautiful secluded parts of the country that we can explore out here. But it's multiple lifetimes worth of exploration to do out here. And like I mentioned earlier, Wisconsin in particular has some fantastic easement access that goes quite a ways back. And so we're very lucky and fortunate to be able to have additional access via these landowners who are willing to open up their gates to some of those opportunities.
That's great. And what is what's the camping like out in that area? I mean, it sounds like you're just moving there, but is there some pretty good access to pull up and do some camping? Yeah,
there are. There are a couple of bigger waterways throughout the region that just have some streamside campsites that you pull off on. And I know there are a number of campgrounds in the area too that have some great opportunities. And the Driftless is nothing but these beautiful rolling hills and spring-fed creeks, and you have these ridge tops that go down into these limestone valleys, and just I think you'd be hard pressed to find a campsite that is not picturesque out here. So yeah, plenty of options for sure.
Good. What would be, if we're coming up there into Wisconsin in that area, what would be a kind of a destination, maybe not even fly fishing, but where would be a place we should stop to check out?
Oh, well, you certainly have to swing through Viroqua. That's kind of one of the central hubs for fly fishing out here. So I would certainly make sure you stop in. And that's, again, where Driftless Angler is located. But let's see. I would say without giving any particular spots away, you can really find some hidden gems in terms of some just absolutely fantastic, and in some cases historic dive bars out in the backwoods out here.
Oh, there you go.
So I would say, as you guys are exploring a little bit, keep your eyes peeled, because sometimes that sort of nondescript, it might not even have a name on or a sign on the front, but some of those are some of the most just inviting and unique environments out here. So I would keep that on your bucket list too.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. All right, so we got some good. And what about if maybe non-fly fishing? Are there any attractions? What would people be coming to Wisconsin to do out there or in that area? Is there anything? What's it known for? Obviously, cheese, right? You got the cheese going.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you've got Wisconsin cheese curds, which are hard to pass up. Really, I mean, in any variety, but I think the truly fresh ones are the absolute best. But there's quite a bit of mountain biking and just cycling in general out here. You have all of these winding country highways that snake between these valleys and ridges, so it can be some really exciting road biking even opportunities. And there are quite a few old railroad beds that have been converted into gravel bike trails that'll take you through some pretty historic railroad tunnels and things like that. So that can be quite a bit of fun. And then, I mean, you've got, of course, a thriving craft beer scene. You've got the town of New Glarus, which, of course, is fairly well known for folks here in Wisconsin. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, picking up a couple of cold spotted cows along the way would be my recommendation there as well.
Perfect. We'll hit that up. So a couple of cold spotted cows. Awesome. Nice. All right. Yeah, Erik, I think this has been great. I think we've covered anything else you want to shed light back on trout routes or anything coming up here that we haven't touched on today you want to make sure people take away?
I think what I would suggest is, if you haven't checked out the app yet, I would encourage you to do so. We've got a lot of information in there that I think is going to help your summer fishing season. But really stay tuned, because we have so many exciting opportunities and updates that are coming through that we're now able to push through much faster than we're used to. So Trout Routes is making tons of improvements every day, it seems like. And so I would say, yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, you can download it for free. Make sure you check out Trout Routes in the App Store. And then, keep your eyes peeled on our social media for some other fun things that we've got going on this summer. And I hope everyone has a great summer season.
Awesome. All right, Erik, thanks a lot. And we'll be in touch. And like we said, we'll send everybody out to troutroutes.com, and we'll be checking in with you later on. Thanks again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, there it is. Where are you heading next? What is on your next itinerary? Where is your next journey? I'd love to hear. Send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. I also want to remind you, we have launched the shop via Wetfly Swing Pro, and this is a great opportunity to get a bunch of resources and connect to our community, talk one-on-one with everybody in the community to get resources in there. If you're interested in building your next big trip, finding out where to go, how to get inside scoop information, all the details, you can head over to right now, wetflyswing.com/pro. Check it out right now, and you can learn more and follow up with me, and we hope to see you on the inside. All right, don't miss the next episode as we get back into muskie. We've got a big biologist that's talking a lot about the muskie diet habits. So as we prepare for that Wisconsin trip to fish for muskie, as we prepare for that big trip, it's time to focus on more of the details of the trip. So this is one of them. We're going to find out why muskie actually aren't eating pike, bass, and walleye, a lot of those other species. So stay tuned this week on the next episode. Also, if you want to get in on that muskie episode, we do have one spot available right now. You can send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. If you're interested, we are going fishing with the muskie fool. This is an amazing trip. I don't want you to miss this one because we're fishing with Dan and his crew, and it's going to be epic. Right now, check it out. Muskie Fool is the place to be. Send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com, if you want to catch your first muskie with one of the greatest shops out there and one of the greatest locations in the world. All right. I hope you have a great afternoon. I hope you have a great evening or great morning wherever you are in the world. And I appreciate you for stopping in today and checking out the show. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.